Welcome to another episode of the Just Basketball Show. Thank you for finding us wherever you listen to podcasts. Give us 5 stars, hit that subscribe or follow button. Lock in for the rest of what should be an awesome year in basketball. The All-Star break is in the rearview mirror. We're here to talk about that and more, the latest news in basketball, as well as the highs and lows of All-Star weekend. I'm Brendon Kleen. That's Chris Manning. We're your hosts. Don't forget to follow us as well. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you are, we are. Get in that way as well. Chris, some news to get to first. We're going to dive into the highs and lows of All-Star Weekend. I feel like, unfortunately, there might have been a few more lows unless you're a real sneakerhead, in which case you got berated over the top of the head with everybody's new shoe.
Sure.
I don't know if you caught that, but
look. This gives me a second to tee off on this. Yeah. NBA All-Star Weekend is as much as it is a celebration of the league and all the great players and the young superstars to come and all that stuff. It is a business marketing event. It is like a conference for NBA marketing for shoe companies and other sponsors and all of these things to do events and have people come out and run around and push products and announce shoes and blah, blah, blah. Like, that is what it is. It was that way in Cleveland last year. I saw it up close in person. It was that way in Utah. It will be that way in Indianapolis next year. Like, that is what this weekend is. Like, it is just the reality of it. There's fun parts of it, all that stuff, but like, it is a event to promote brands and all of that stuff as much as it is like a celebration of the NBA at this point. That's just the reality.
It's whining and dining, right? It's schmoozing the corporate partners. It's all that good stuff. I do find it funny that with all that said, they made everybody fly out to Salt Lake City to do the whining and dining, and it'll be Indianapolis, as you said, next year. It's like they're really making these corporate people work for it.
I'm betting like minus like 500 that like LA or Miami or someone like that gets the 2025 All-Star game. I know Milwaukee's bid for it and stuff, and like
I was just gonna say
Milwaukee
wants it.
There are other fun cities. Like I think Milwaukee, I think Portland would be a great one. But I feel like we're gonna get. I think like post-pandemic, like LA All-Star Weekend is just like I feel like that's got to be like a lock.
Yeah, I think Phoenix will get one soon. They just renovated their arena, so I'm hoping for that. But yeah, Cleveland, Salt Lake, and Indianapolis is one way to make all the media and companies you work with get very grumpy. So we'll see.
Unless you're me, who's like, you know what's great? Midwest cities and cold cities. You know what's great? The cold. I love the cold. Cleveland was great.
The cold is I don't think the cold. I mean, I know some people cry about the cold. That's one thing. I think the boringness. Now, Cleveland probably being the exception. These two upcoming are probably even smaller. But
you're coming.
Setting that all aside,
you're coming for Final Four Cleveland 2024. So like let's get it. Let's get after it. You're gonna.
I'll go to Indianapolis too. I'll do that.
Okay. I'll get you some Midwest winter. It'll be good to see you, and like we'll have a good time. We'll have a good bring a coat. Do you own a coat?
Yeah, I was just gonna say. It gives me a year to purchase a proper actual winter coat, because what passes for one in Phoenix would make everybody laugh. I don't even want to talk about it. It's in the closet right behind me. But let's get to the news, Chris. Russell Westbrook, who I think I kind of bleakly and sadly told you last time we recorded I didn't think would help anybody, which might have been a little harsh, but was pretty accurate to how I felt when we were talking about really shaping the postseason and championship conversation. He is going to be a Los Angeles Clipper. That wasn't super unexpected, Chris, I don't think. But what was unexpected, I think, is the news coming right quickly thereafter from both local reporters and national reporters that Westbrook might also be a starting point guard for your Los Angeles Clippers. What are they doing? What's going on here?
So Paul George is maybe the general manager of the Los Angeles Clippers. Is that an unfair takeaway?
It's probably not unfair. He definitely lobbied for it. Did you see that over All-Star Weekend? Speaking of, he said that aside from himself, that Russ was the number one player in the NBA he wanted to see win a championship before it was all said and done.
I did. And like I do think I'm sure there are differing opinions of players in the league versus like how like media or fans feel about certain players. Like that would be my general belief set on that, right? Like I would suspect that there are lots of differing opinions. I even think, Brendon, like there are parts of this Russ thing in LA that with the Clippers to specify, not the Lakers. That didn't work. But I am bullish on parts of this. I think like there are things he will do that I think complement what Paul George and Kawhi offer that is very different than, let's say LeBron and AD or like some of the other like kind of guys he has played with of late. Like I don't think like it's a better fit for him than Harden. What I think is, it's not that he can't help. I think what the problem is that like we are talking about Russell, like not we, but like the pejorative we, the collective we. It's like Russ. We're thinking about Russ as like it's Russ, and it's like gonna be like it's a new big three, and it's like all this stuff. That is not what Russ is anymore. He is not this. He is not close to the player he was at his like MVP triple double monster apex. He's not that guy anymore, and like. If the whole point of bringing in Russ is to provide a point guard and stuff and feed shots to PG and Kawhi, like isn't that taking away from some of like what could make the Clippers special? I think like in limited bench minutes he's going to be effective. I think him and Norm is like go out on the break bench unit could be a lot of fun. I get them taking the risk to some degree, but like it doesn't like move my Clippers title expectations in any way. And I think like it has to be, I think if we're going to talk about Russ and anyone is talking about Russ, it's got to be framed in a very realistic way about what he is now and what everything that we've seen shows is because it is kind of a bummer, like everything with Russ, but the reality is like he has not been a helpful winning player in a situation since like Oklahoma City.
Yeah. Yeah, he was fine in that Rocket season, I think.
Oh, the Wizards. The Wizards. He was all NBA.
Yeah,
he was really, really good in DC, and then like was not good in LA. So,
yeah, I think that's all fair. I feel like Russ and Kawhi, or I'm sorry, PG and Kawhi can be free agents in 2024. So after next season. Basically, after this season, they'll kind of be, that last year leverage type of situation, both of them. And so keeping them happy isn't insignificant. I think the part that really surprised me was just having this happen right after the way that they approached the trade deadline, which was in large part getting rid of players like this. They signed John Wall for not even the minimum, if I'm remembering correctly, and yet got rid of him. At the deadline, they moved Luke Kennard even, who is somewhat of a ball handler, and then obviously ended up cutting Reggie Jackson. So that's the part that surprises me, is it felt like they were moving away from a real point guard after a long time where we all thought that's exactly what they needed. I agree with you. I think all things considered, the Clippers have more wing shooting and wing defense, that this will be a better fit from a basketball standpoint than it was with the Lakers. I think the superstar players, I actually think Russ fit fine with AD because they could push the tempo, they could play pick and roll together. That wasn't a problem. It was mostly LeBron. Kawhi and PG can spot up shoot. They're comfortable in some cases with the ball out of their hands, so I think that's at least incrementally better than it was with the Lakers. The one part that I don't love about the fit is whether it's with the starting unit with Zubats or now that they've added Mason Plumlee,
sure.
They don't really have a big man to kind of like go up and down the floor with him and play pick and roll and all that stuff. But I think we're on the same page that it won't be, it shouldn't affect them massively unless off-court stuff does pose a problem again.
Here's just the reality, I think, of Russ in 2023 and wherever he goes beyond this. It is past the point where you bring in Russ to cater to Russ. Russ has to cater to you, and I think that there has been some ways you can do that, and it's been effective. He's not been like a total like complete loss. It seems like there's motivation with Kawhi, at least PG. Lord knows what Kawhi thinks about anything. I have no idea. Like I don't think anybody knows, but I think this is a situation where like he has to come in and do kind of the things he's going to do, and it will be a challenge for Ty Lue. Like it just will. Like it is just a tricky thing to navigate if you're Ty.
Yeah, feel bad for Terrence Mann, who might have his role cut into despite playing really well in the starting lineup.
Bones Highland just like not going to get minutes, I guess. Like,
no. And to your point, on the Russ side, to close things out here, he does have an incentive, right? Because we're talking about the difference between being a minimum player / potentially somebody who might not even have a roster spot for himself. I'm not sure we're there yet. or someone who can actually be in demand and make a little bit more money before his career is over and actually get to control his own destiny, choose a location rather than just picking whoever will take him. But let's go back to the WNBA, which is a league we have not checked on in a bit here, Chris, because things died down after the super teams formed. But both Diana Taurasi and Brittney Griner re-signing with the Phoenix Mercury. I think people will hear those names. Those two players have both only ever played for Phoenix. That is not necessarily a surprise, but it is more so what they represent. I live here. I've covered that team, honestly, longer than I've covered the Suns, Chris. So I've been around both of these athletes for a long time. To me, this is it's extremely complicated. The complications around Griner playing and all that stuff are not gone just because she has been safely returned to the U.S. How will her body react? What are the safety and security concerns around her traveling? These are all things that will continue to be talked about. Good to see she's choosing to play and that's something she can still find happiness in. I hope that continues for her. But Diana Taurasi's 40. Brittney Griner just got back from a hellacious experience as a political prisoner, which is an insane sentence to say still after a year of it happening. And then Skylar Diggins-Smith, the third star on this team, they've basically never played together. Griner went home from the bubble, then she missed that last season, and then Taurasi and different players have been hurt. Skylar Diggins-Smith is also pregnant and may not play this year. So it's just going to be another year in Phoenix where there's just not a lot at stake on the basketball court. And that's fine. There's more to sports than just making sure everybody wins as much as they possibly can. But still going to be a little bit of a weird year. And I do kind of feel bad for them.
Yeah, I hope Brittney Griner gets the flowers and praise she deserves when she goes to any city. I think that will be a really cool element to this. I at least you would hope. The Taurasi thing is really complicated for me, Brendon, because that is one of the legends of women's basketball. That's one of the legends of basketball, period. But this is her late Kobe. This is her Kobe era. This is what this is.
Yeah.
This is the franchise takes care of the superstar that was with them forever and done right by them and won a lot for them. They're not at the peak of their powers. There's not really any expectation, I think, from anyone outside the organization. And I would curious if you ask them hey, how good are we going to be? But it's not going to be this is a title contender team. This team doesn't get close to the Aces or the Liberty. They just don't. And in that, it's not going to be a Sue Bird thing where they make a run and get a chance to go out that way, right? That is not where this is headed, I think, for Taurasi. And it also just seems like she's angling for one last Olympics. And that in itself is complicated because she's going to have played at a ton of Olympics at that point. And is she going to be one of the best 12 American women to go to the Olympics in 2024?
No, I don't think she was last time.
So that this is this really uncomfortable thing, and there's no one ever leaves these things cleanly. There's no perfect retirement. Kobe got the closest probably, just because of how he went out against the Jazz and the Mamba tour and stuff. And Taurasi's is I think not going to, unfortunately, because of various things, not going to get that same level of acclaim on her kind of way out. Probably not going to get the same arena tour, so to speak, that Kobe got.
Even as Sue Bird got, right? Because it's just going to be not as graceful.
It just doesn't feel that same way. And I don't know what she thinks about that, but this just feels like it's going to be kind of weird. And you would like to see Taurasi just get her flowers and all that stuff because she's a legend, but it's also just okay, what is this? It almost in some ways it might have been more fun to go chase ring chase for something and be on with the Mystics or something, but instead she's
sure
here and it's just going to be the tour.
I think if the Sparks were better, she might have done that because that's home for her. She's a Southern California person. They have a home there. And I could see that, but the Sparks are poorly run and not a winning team right now, so there's no real incentive to jump ship.
And then even if she wanted the Connecticut storylines, Jonquel Jones leaves, that's not a title contender in the same way that they might have been either. So you're in maybe the option is just ride it out in Phoenix to be the one team person.
Yeah, and she's beloved. I mean, she is probably the most beloved Phoenix athlete. I mean, I guess Booker is certainly there at this point because he's now won, although for a while she was really the only Phoenix athlete to consistently win. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I covered her 4 years ago, Chris. She had this spinal like a vertebrate injury. And it was really gruesome. She missed most of the season. When she came back, it was like, please stop trying to do this. It's like painful. You might be done. And like that sucks, but please don't hurt yourself worse or just go out in this unglamorous way playing bad basketball. I thought she was done. It's now 4 entire years later, and here she is. It's going to be very crazy. She seems very much like these Brady types or whoever you want to point to. They just cannot quit. They can't say goodbye to the competition, to the training, the physical, the endorphins, all of it. And I hope that she can go out on her own terms and it doesn't hit that mark. Peyton Manning, another one, right?
Yeah, and like I think the Kobe thing is even stronger. The parallel there, because like he tears his Achilles. And he just trudges on. And, like, it was kind of clear that he wasn't Kobe anymore, but you still watch him because he's Kobe. And we will still watch Taurasi because she's Taurasi.
Chris, some news that came down right as we were about to record here that'll lead us into highs and lows of All-Star Weekend. Giannis Antetokounmpo suffered a sprained ligament in his right wrist, according to all of the insiders at this point. I think the only real thing, it seems like he avoided anything severe, and he'll, according to Woj, be able to return to the lineup once the pain subsides. So that is usually a good sign. It doesn't require surgery. He doesn't have to get off of it. It's just pain management. If I ask you right now with that in mind, if Boston or Milwaukee get the 1 seed in the East, what would you say?
I mean, I think this doesn't seem like a massive deal. I think those are the two favorites. I think the 1 seed will obviously have an advantage of just getting home court. It was just interesting to see. It'll just be interesting to see like how long this does maybe linger is where I kind of go with this. And it's like hard to say. Like they say it's not serious, but it's like if this lingers, there are only 20-some games left. You know, if he's going to take some games off, like this could have like a real impact. And it's like if you look at the East, Philly has a really tough schedule the rest of the way, so maybe you're not expecting them to make the same push up there that they might. The Cavs are a little bit further back, but with a pretty paper-thin schedule. Like it could still get really competitive for them, and you kind of expect Milwaukee to try to like push for as much as they can. And there's also the fact that like you kind of also want to get Jay Crowder like reps with playing with Giannis, and like that this maybe limits that, and that's a little bit tricky. So I ultimately don't think it's probably the biggest deal, but it all depends on how much Giannis actually kind of plays and looks like himself when he does play. And like if this is really nothing, then this is a nothing story ultimately. But maybe if it's anything more or it lingers or whatever way, like then this becomes a problem.
Having underestimated Giannis when he looked like an injured flamingo in the conference finals 2 years ago.
That is an incredible phrase. Injured flamingo.
His knee went the wrong direction. And he, in my opinion, maybe inflated the story a bit, if I'm being honest with you.
An NBA player inflated their injury, Brendon?
I don't know if you actually saw this because I was just mad. Despite the jersey of his hanging right behind me, I was a little pissed when he went to Sam Amick after winning the finals, after the injury against Atlanta, when he came back and then grew multiplied his powers by 4 over the course of that final series and ended with a 50-piece. He went and told Sam Amick that any wrong move, the meniscus or whatever, the tissue that holds his kneecap into place, he said was basically gone. And he made it sound, he didn't even make it sound. He said at that time that if he did a similar motion with his knee, that we would have literally seen the man's leg collapse. Feels a little inflated. But he came back. He did that. And I guess that means I'm never gonna underestimate his ability to be a literal robot. But that leads us into my first high, or our first high of the All-Star Weekend here, Chris, which is Giannis was kind of front and center at this thing. I don't know if this is just a me thing of like the face of the league stuff. I really am interested in it as LeBron enters the end of his career here. But Giannis was courtside at the dunk contest. I think he called Grant Williams fat. He stole Dame Lillard from LeBron in the draft, which we all know LeBron always picks Lillard. He accidentally picked Ja and had a little moment with Ernie Johnson and joking around.
The job moment was incredible.
To be fair, very relatable because I don't think anyone tuning into that game knew who the starters were at this point with all the guys injured.
Probably
and
not.
Changing conferences.
Yeah.
So it's all right. And then he has the dunk at the beginning of the game and then, the intentional foul to get out of it. All this stuff. What did you think of Giannis just kind of like owning this moment? He was probably the most present and visible superstar at this big weekend of whining and dining that we talked about.
I think that's right. Like, did you also see where he talked to this? Someone asked him, like, how much his fit cost, and he's like, free. The bracelets are fake. Like, he was just like, I'm not spending like actual money on any of this stuff, and I'm like, good for you, King. Good for you, not like just like you're being a frugal king, and I respect that about Giannis. I thought him and Jokic were like the two that kind of got over. Jokic just because he just like is like goofy and weird, and they tried to sing him happy birthday, and then he also thought he got drafted last and was like, okay, I'm going here, and it's just it was also just like hilarious to watch Kyrie try to like throw him off the backboard like dunk lobs, and I'm like, Nicole is not going to do that, Kyrie. Have you never watched him play basketball? That's not what's going to happen here with him. But yeah, Giannis, every time you put him in front of a microphone, let him be himself, he comes across like a superstar. And I don't think you're wrong to think that when you watch him.
He also has this commercial with Simu Liu from, what is the Marvel movie?
Shang-Chi, but also Kim's Convenience. Shout out Kim's Convenience. A very good show.
So he's in this commercial. That was playing constantly. I guess it just speaks to, because we talked about this last week with some of our takeaways from the first half of the season, and I was kind of putting it out there of like, I'm not really sure who's going to take the baton from LeBron here in terms of just the fame and celebrity, who's the face of the league, whatever. And it just kind of goes to show that a guy with a thick accent who plays in a very small market and is maybe not traditionally marketable in the way that like Phil Knight would have told us was marketable or whatever. Here he is, and seems pretty damn famous to me, and very fun and very well known and whatever. Helps to have a funny name that people still, like Reggie Miller, pretend to not know how to say for whatever reason, but it does help to have that recognizable characteristic. I just think greatness wins out, and he's obviously great. He's proven it, and here he's kind of reaping the rewards of that.
Him and LeBron are also like a fun like play off of each other kind of thing. Like, I don't think like every superstar you put in that situation is gonna like vibe off of LeBron in that same way and have fun with that. Like, I don't think like Luka maybe even does that. I don't think like Jokic obviously is gonna do that. Like Embiid might, but it'd be like a very different kind of energy. Giannis is like just kind of like perfectly likable in every single context you could put him in, and he just kind of wins in every one of those contexts, I think. Like, and he's just like put in front and center and stuff, and you're probably going to be very happy about the fact that you did so.
Yeah, and you saying that makes me feel like we're going to run into, there's going to eventually be a fan vote winner that becomes a captain that is just very not personable and funny and
Luka.
Like
it will be
telegenic.
It'll be like Luka, or it'll be like maybe there's like a K-pop thing and like it's like Wiggins,
Yeah, so I hope we don't run into that because it will be awkward. But that brings us into our next high here, which is the drafting of the teams live. I was nervous we were only going to get the starters because that rumor started to creep out that people were going to be sad and embarrassed and whatever. I thought Jokic and Markkanen kind of took it like champs. Even Jaren was kind of embarrassed, and you could tell. But I do feel like that's for the best. Doing the starters would have been embarrassing. But I think the whole entire thing was really fun, and I do think it really added something. Like, that made me want to watch it more. Maybe I won't feel that way 15 years from now when it's normal, but it spiced it up in a way that I think the All-Star game needed, or at least made it more fun.
I agree. I think the draft is a win. I think you should do it every year. I think you have to hope you get. You're right to kind of shout out the captains thing. It's like you need to get captains that are going to have fun with it. I think I would kind of like what I would add, if I could add anything, Brendon, is I would have not Ernie, but maybe it's Shaq. I want the Mel Kiper.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I want the Mel Kiper hitting me with draft grades as we're going, and it's like you took Kyrie this high, LeBron. What are we doing here? What are we doing?
I think it would have been funny to have it because they were doing this during the game of Draymond interviewing the players.
Yeah, Draymond
be the commentator.
Draymond is the perfect one because he'll speak his mind. Maybe he's an all-star again, but like I would guess maybe not. But like, and he's great on TV. He's going to be. Just side note, he's going to be incredible as an analyst when he's done. Incredible.
Yeah, he is.
Him and Candace Parker are like the two like best active players that have stepped into that, and I think like Richard Jefferson's probably like my third favorite. Like I think those three are all really, really good. But like, yeah, Draymond should be like the Mel Kiper and just being like, what is your team construction? Like Giannis was like, I would need to take a big, and then he like didn't take a big. And his team won, so it doesn't matter. But it's just like LeBron got Jokic and Embiid, and it's like, how did Giannis let that happen?
Speaking of Draymond, I thought one of the funny, very like quick moments, but when he double checked with Ja that he was still feeling good in the West during the game, he was like interviewing him and he's like, who do you respect? Like he literally made Ja say the Warriors are great and then doubled down and he was like, but you're still feeling good, all right? Like everything still feel totally comfortable for you? And he's like, yeah, I'm still fine. Like obviously Ja was kind of joking too, but Draymond will troll everybody, and I hope that continues when he is just a commentator, Chuck does.
Yeah, it hits a little different because he is like a competitor against them, and he's going to get to like clap in Ja's face in a playoff round possibly, but yeah like he's going to be good at that forever.
All right. A low. There was plenty. We don't have to linger too much on the lows, but this is actually a fun conversation, I think. The skills challenge is dead, is the low.
Yeah.
Awful TV, awful in-arena product, I think.
It was bad. I watched it last year in person. It's not good.
No.
Brendon, I don't think there's a fix, though, is the problem.
So I think there is. I feel like Peyton Manning and Eli Manning might be onto something with the Pro Bowl games. I don't know how that did from a rating standpoint, but it at least is more fun.
Wait. Did you watch the NFL Pro Bowl?
No, but why would I? I'm not going to either way.
Okay, I'm just about to be like, are you like watching the Pro Bowl? Brandon's like, I love the NFL Pro Bowl.
I didn't watch the Pro Bowl when it was a real football game. I did not watch the flag football thing, and I did not watch the Pro Bowl games.
Okay.
But the point I'm making is, especially as an in-arena product, but even on TV for kids and stuff, and definitely for social media and YouTube and whatever, do your own version of that, NBA. Like Pop a Shot. That would be awesome.
Pop a Shot would
how
be
about
good.
How about a jump ball competition? Just like very mismatched sized people trying to do a jump ball. I think that could be fun. Like the NFL just did weird stuff. Like half of it's not even football. So you don't even like, I put cornhole down as an idea. Darts. Horse is the one everybody always says, which I think was in the All-Star weekend at one point.
Do you remember when they did it during COVID? And people did it at their homes? Yes. It was awful. Awful.
Yeah, because they were filming it and they weren't even in the building together.
I just also don't think horse is like, the pacing of that would need to be really fast. And like, I don't know.
That's for sure.
I don't know if you're getting the pacing you need to like really, really kind of keep that going. I think it has to be stuff that is like fast paced and interactive quick. And like friendly in that way. And like horse probably isn't. Can you imagine?
Pig? I don't know.
But like, just imagine how like the dunk contest loses all its momentum when guys start missing dunks. Can you imagine if people just aren't making the trick shots they're trying, and like you'd have dead air at that point. Like you have in our notes.
It would have to be good players too, right? It would have to be like Steph and Dame or something.
It would just need to be Steph and like it's Steph seeing if he can make trick shots with either hand. You have this in our notes. I would rather watch Shooting Stars and the Shooting Stars competition than the Skills Challenge. I would rather them like put the WNBA players in something on Saturday than like put one on each of the celebrity teams for like no reason. Yeah. Like let them do something real on Saturday.
Having pro basketball players on the celebrity team is a little strange.
Having like a recap,
bring that back, and you get to do. They want to pump up these vets or like retired guys so much now.
Bring him back.
That's an easy way. There was always one that was the third player in the Shooting Stars was like an NBA lifer from whatever team.
Yeah.
There's 3 and 1.
Tell me you couldn't get like
and it's fun.
Like Luka, Dirk, and then like pick up a member of the Dallas Wings. Like there you go. Profit.
Exactly.
LA, exactly. LeBron, Magic, and pick a and one of the pick someone from the Sparks. Phoenix, Devin Booker,
Taurasi,
and then pick
Charles Barkley,
Charles
Steve Nash.
There you go. Get one of them. Boom, profit. Like
you're better. The one thing I will say, do not keep putting those old men in basketball jerseys.
No.
If you look back at those old pictures, it's like 50-year-old Magic Johnson in a tank top, and he looks great, but that's embarrassing. Like, don't make those guys go out there.
No, it's like baseball managers wearing. This is stepping on the toes of the Just Baseball show, but like I think baseball managers wearing baseball jerseys is like ridiculous. Just let them wear like a.
It's funny. Just
let them wear like a polo. I know a lot of them just wear pullovers, but they just look ridiculous.
Yes, they do. All right. Another high, I think, was McClung winning the dunk contest. I don't even remember who put this out there, Chris, but I think this is one way to alleviate some of the misery around the dunk contest, although I do think that's mostly like the middle-aged media members who are upset about it at this point. I think kids probably still enjoy it. But speaking of kids, they also very much enjoy McClung. He is a viral sensation, and I think this is kind of a fun way to do it, where you can bring in some of these like niche, like silly. I don't mean to insult McClung, but he was there because he goes viral for dunks. He wasn't there because everybody knows how great of a basketball player he is. Then do some of the young guys, athletic young guys like they've done. Then maybe get like one or two well-known guys. And I think you're cooking. Like this just fills like one or two more slots if you can do the viral people, so that you don't have to worry about filling out a whole roster of awesome, well-known players. And then maybe you can convince, I don't know, it just gets more fun and you can start to mix and match a little more. I don't know. I don't think it's fully fixed. I think it's still going to be years when it sucks, but he made it a lot more fun, at least for this year.
It was so much better than last year when I wrote off the dunk contest. Like the dunk contest I saw in person was I think took all the air of the arena. This brought the arena back to life. You saw everyone freaking out. You saw the players on the sidelines creeping into the court, and reacting to McClung like he was a star, and it was great. Like Trey Murphy also I think really brought it. I think Mac clearly won, but Trey Murphy really, really brought it. I think McClung should automatically just be he was asked about this on the broadcast after, he should just be in it next year. Put him in it. Let him defend his title. And Brendon, this leads me to the thing. Ja Morant said this weekend that he won't ever do it. LeBron has obviously never done it. It's been
lame.
Okay, so but I give you as the czar of the NBA fund committee. Okay, you get to tell 4 people, and they can't say no to you. You're in the dunk contest for Indianapolis 2024. Who are your 4?
Okay, so I think this is pretty easy. I've spent too much time thinking about this, as you can probably tell with how quick I didn't even have to think for a second. Anthony Edwards, Ja Morant, Zion Williamson, and LeBron James.
Okay,
those are my 4.
Okay, so I went McClung. I want McClung in it. I want him to defend.
Reigning champion. That's fair.
Let's bring back Aaron Gordon.
Okay.
Zion.
Yep.
And Ja. That's the 4 I want. LeBron would find a way to still tell me no, is why I don't have LeBron in there. It's also just be weird to see LeBron finally do it at 39.
Yeah, it would. He's not going to do it. That's more of a dream.
None of these guys are probably going to.
At this point.
No. None of these guys are going to do it.
Ant said he wasn't going to do it ever, I think, too, this weekend. I think he was also asked about it and was like, no.
He should do it.
Which is kind of interesting to me, because he seems to have a better attitude about a lot of this stuff and just is more willing to be laid back and have fun with it, whereas these other guys just, whatever, their pride or...
This
they don't want to waste
thing.
the time.
This is the
Who
thing.
knows?
This is the thing. This is the thing about the dunk contest that I don't have a good answer on, that I would like to figure out at some point. I do not know why. There's not been a good answer to why guys don't want to do the dunk contest anymore. I have not read a piece. I have not seen quotes. I don't understand why it is. Ja's answer was just no, I'm not going to do it. And I just want to know why. I just would like to know why, because even not that long ago, Blake Griffin, near the height of his powers or on the way up, was doing it. Dwight Howard, at near the apex of his career, did it. Levine was ascending when he did it. Gordon was really ascending when he did it. Now you're getting no offense to them, but it's Jericho Sims.
Well, yeah, I think that's what I was gonna say that you're making me think of, because I agree we haven't really heard a great reason. Is Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine are either all-star or borderline all-star caliber players, good players. It's not like they're only known for the dunk contest, but I would venture to guess that they are pretty significantly more famous because they did it.
Correct.
It definitely helped them in terms of like the average NBA fan caring about them. Like, for instance, that dunk Aaron Gordon had on Christmas where he just ended the heart and soul of Landry Shamet. That dunk was reacted to way more because people know Aaron Gordon, right? They were like, that's the guy from the dunk contest, and he just did it again. Like, it really does help you, I think. It is funny. And I do think, like, you know, like we joked about the sneaker stuff, but like John Morant, you want to sell a shoe?
Go win the dunk contest.
Crazy poster dunk. People would eat that up. Not that he's not already famous enough, but it is funny.
No,
right.
and just the last thing on this, it's like think about Mac McClung as like a late replacement. Would the dunk contest have been nearly as good if that doesn't happen?
I would have still wanted Shaedon Sharpe in it.
Yeah,
but
like
I want both of them.
Yeah, so realistic for next year is like Shaedon Sharpe, Mac McClung. Maybe get Scoot to do it.
Yes, Scoot would be a fun one. That was going to be one of my quick things, although, you know, it's not the most relevant in the world, but they kind of missed an opportunity with Scoot here. They featured him almost felt like more last year, the G League Ignite team. And this year he's actually going to be drafted. That was his first year, and you didn't really see a lot from him. I know they were in the Rising Stars thing, and the G League had their own like little All-Star game, and Scoot did a media availability and whatnot. But he's an easy one too. I think there are going to be guys who do it eventually, because I just, like you said, why would you not? And if it's that kind of opportunity of like, hey, you could sell your shoe, or you'll be able to do, we'll pay you $1 million to bring I don't know, like Blake Griffin with the Kia, right? Like, I hope people go back to it. But all right, we have a little bit more of a deeper one here. I'm not sure if it's a high or a low, but I guess all things considered, a high. Nothing negative. Adam Silver said collective bargaining agreements, talks are going well. They will basically, it sounds like a given that expansion will be the next thing that they turn to over the rest of this year and beyond. And the last thing, Chris, is the in-season tournament potentially expanding to non-NBA teams. Kind of a can of worms when you start to talk about that, but what did you make of Silver striking a pretty positive note, even though the CBA is about to expire?
Yeah, the NBPA did as well. I think in their comments, it seems like there's a lot of motivation to get a deal done, which I think makes sense. There's a lot of money on the table. Like, there's so much money with this new TV deal coming, and, you know, we'll see what happens with cap smoothing and the preps to pros rule and all that stuff. There's just so much. This is like a very pivotal, I think, stretch for the league. I'm curious to see just kind of where they end up. It feels like in some ways the NBA is like a little more of like a niche product than I think it kind of would like to be. But I think that we're in an era where like there's a lot of things that are going to change, and we're going to see tried, and this is going to be an era of shifting in the league in some ways. And I think that means that's in terms of star power, but also like if this in-season tournament happens and all that stuff, like the way we think about the league and consume it could change, and this is like a very pivotal moment for that, because this will set in the structure of that for the next several years. I agree with you that you come away from the comments, you come away from what everyone said, and I think you would think it happens. I don't know if it gets done by the next opt-out deadline, which I believe is March 31st, if I remember reading that correctly.
Correct.
But we'll see. I don't know. A lockout doesn't seem to like benefit anyone. Charles Barkley's comments were like very like felt to me very much like, get off my lawn, you young kids, like you're being babies.
Seemed like he had no idea what he was talking about. I'll just say that.
Yeah,
like,
and
you're
like,
not saying the same thing as like anyone else is. Like,
and that's
you can think superstars should act differently. You should think whatever. He said they will lock out. It's like, okay,
I don't
Charles
think
Barkley, labor expert, right?
Well,
come on.
Yeah, and it's like if you read any of the reporting and like maybe they're being cautious and how they're talking about things, like none of the publicly available information leads me to think that we're like headed towards like a lockout. This doesn't like strike me as reading about like MLB before there's a lockout in Major League Baseball, and like I went and it doesn't strike me as that kind of thing here. And again, I just think there's so much money on the table. Whatever happens with league rights and where it goes, it's going to be so much money that like it doesn't make sense for them to like at all risk that money, even though that money won't kick in obviously for a couple more, like another 2 years. Like there's a lot of money on the table right now, and I don't see how a lockout helps anybody.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think a few things. One is, when you talk about that TV deal, it kind of feels like that's going to be the last traditional TV deal. When you just look at the way TV stuff is changing.
Well, assuming that model doesn't break, maybe that model, like the Bally stuff was the other like thing. As Adam Silver was asked about like the Bally bankruptcy stuff and said like, we don't think that's going to affect us, but we have a plan in place to air the games in these markets if that does happen. And like that becomes
the plan
a problem
in place
for us.
is the same as what MLB said, right? And it's probably what they would prefer in the long term. They might not have expected it to happen in 2023, but you just pay attention to how much investment the NBA is putting into its app, not League Pass necessarily, but the app. And
League Pass is still
very
bad.
Clearly, you can very clearly tell what they're trying to do, which is eventually a lot more of their content is going to live on their platforms. And that's kind of what I was about to get to is the way that the NBA monetizes and profits off of the digital viewership and audience that they've developed, which is probably the best in definitely the US and one of the better ones in the entire world, is going to be very interesting. And I hope that in doing that, they don't forget about the people who still just like to watch games and kind of maybe the older demographic, I guess. And I think the other part of that is going to be this. Well, I think the other thing that will define this upcoming stretch of time in the league is it's similar to what we talk about in the WNBA, although the margins and the scale is just going to be different. The people buying into these teams because of the prices that they're going to start going for are going to be extraordinarily wealthy. And I just don't know how predictable it is what their motivations are going to be. We're basically at the end of the road with a lot of these mom and pop NBA teams that are just passed down through the years. Like the guy who used to own the Jazz before Ryan Smith bought them. It was like a furniture store owner who's been in Utah for decades. It's like those owners don't exist anymore. Les Alexander from the Rockets sold to Tillman Fertitta, right? Like these guys are gone. And what do the new people who just purely see it as an investment that they're coming into when they are already wealthy? It's just going to be a very, very different type of thing. And I think to Chuck's point, and like Bill Simmons brought this up on his podcast, there might not be the appetite for stars doing what they want, because a lot of these owners that were not very like wealthy, Chris, they like LeBron could look them in the eye and be like, no, I straight up have more power than you. I might even be richer than you. Right? That's not going to be the case for, Matt Ishbia with the Suns, who just bought for $4 billion. That man's worth more than anyone in the NBA, and it's not even close. So it's going to be very different, and I think that'll kind of define this decade.
I also just wonder where the money comes from is the other part of this. Like, yep. I don't think it was a mistake or unintentional that the NBA did a preseason game in Abu Dhabi and took the Bucks there and took the Hawks there and took Trae Young and took Giannis Antetokounmpo, two very famous players to that market, right? A little better fare than they took to Paris, which was like an actual regular season basketball game, and they took the Pistons and the Bulls, which is just like, okay, I guess. But I'm happy. I am happy that like those beat reporters all got to go to Paris. That seems really cool. And to expense your meals in Paris seems like a win for them.
Thanks to New York Times shareholders, The Athletic got to travel. Yeah. Look at that.
I'm curious to see just where the money comes from. Like you and I are both in like our fandom outside of basketball, big soccer fans. I'm a Tottenham Hotspur supporter. You're a Chelsea supporter. Tottenham is.
Don't tell people that. I don't want to identify that way right now.
Brendon, my life is just a lot of, I take on a lot of like sad sports teams and things, and it's like Tottenham just, we beat West Ham, but like another Leicester game where we blow it and it's bad is out the window. Like that's very much always on the table for me. Like the vibes are never consistent. It's an up and down roller coaster. Chelsea gets bought by Todd Bowley, who's a very specific type of American spending lots of money. But you look at Man United is up for sale right now. Maybe they're going to get bought by a mega mogul from the Middle East. Man City is under serious investigation, and they're owned by like a big Middle East wealth fund. Saudi Arabia functionally bought Newcastle. Tottenham is reportedly for sale, and there's some suspicion that there could be like a Qatari bid in there. They own PSG. Like that money is coming into sports. The NBA, I wouldn't be I don't know if we're going to get like a full-on team takeover in that way. It doesn't seem to offer them the same kind of control. But like it would be like the closed loop system, and like I wouldn't be surprised if like one of these wealth funds or one of these countries does invest in like owns like 5% of an NBA team, and you see that. That would not surprise me if like in 3 years one of the minority stakeholders in the Cleveland Cavaliers or the New York Knicks or the Miami Heat or whomever, the Phoenix Suns, is like 5% owned by like a very rich person you've never heard of from the Middle East, and that's like a lot where cash infusion comes. And like what that means, what the implications of that are, is a very real. It's a very real thing. It's just it just is.
Yeah, and I believe that's money that does not go to the players, right? And that's another reason that it might be pretty savory for the owners. Same thing with expansion, which we said Silver agreed on. The expansion fees I don't think are shared revenue. I think that goes directly to the other owners. So
yeah,
that competition and spitting contest is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, and then Silver did say, I think there was an update on expansion over the weekend that the TV rights deal is going to get done before there's any expansion stuff. So there's a little bit of time, it seems like, before that happens. And the new CBA obviously will maybe have something to do about that. That wouldn't surprise me if we learned something about that once the CBA is finalized.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think there will be a lot more games on the internet with that TV deal, but we have a little bit of time to forecast that out before we get there. All right, my last thing here, just a fun one. One thing that was made for TV and probably pretty silly, but that I really got a kick out of was Dame putting the Weber State jersey on. It said Dame Dollar on the back. Looked very cool. And then just with ice in his veins, going out and hitting like 4 in the final rack to win the 3-point shootout over Buddy Hield. That was fun. That was like classic All-Star weekend. I'm sure a bunch of kids in Portland were like just dying over how cool they must have thought that was. Like that's kind of what this was all about. And Dame is very, like you can trust him to deliver with that stuff and actually just kind of buy in and have fun with it.
I also love that he was like, the greatest shooters ever win these. I've won one. I'm retiring from it, but this is part of my legacy. I kind of love that he made that call out because I don't think he's wrong. Yeah. I think he's right. And I think it's just like, it's cool when like, where it was like, you see, like, I thought Gilgeous-Alexander seemed like sort of disinterested in like some of the All-Star stuff, whereas like Dame is like, this is part of the thing. And like, I value this. And that to me is cool. I had the same, like, that was my big thing, was like, aside from the Giannis stuff and everything, I thought Dame was like kind of the most fun player. We didn't even like talk about Jason Tatum like setting a new scoring record in the All-Star game, and I love when you can tell
Joe Mazzulla fixed it.
Yeah, okay.
No, it was fixed. The fix was in. Joe Mazzulla just set that all up. I'm not going to honor the record. It didn't happen in my book.
Okay, but I do love when a guy is like clearly going for it in the middle of the All-Star game. I didn't love when they were all trying to take these ridiculous deep threes. I'm like, just end it. Like the Elam ending didn't really provide the tension it did the year before. Like it's maybe like some of its proponents, I think, are like, there is still going to be some goofiness with it. I'd still just keep the 4 quarters and let's just like, not like, we don't need to like break the wheel and like build a new wheel all the time. But like, it's fun in this context. Seeing Tatum go off is fun. I love when guys hunt stuff. It was like Mitchell went off, like LeBron did some fun stuff before he hurt his pinky. Like, ultimately fun All-Star weekend. Dunk contest was great. It is what it is, and I think everyone gets to celebrate it. And I enjoyed Luka being like, I will take 5 questions. I need to get on a plane. It's vacation time, and I respect that too. Go on your vacations, rich NBA players.
Absolutely, they only get like 3 days in the middle of this crazy time. The Tatum stuff. I thought Brown and Tatum going at each other was like the one actually competitive and fun like basketball moment that they got to be on opposite teams and then kind of take over for like 2 or 3 minutes of just like, hey, this is sort of like a Celtics practice and we're just watching it live. This is fun. But yeah, very fun. I think all things considered, like us 30-year-old people who don't, it's not for us.
Brendon, you can't claim that you're like 26. You can't claim you're close to 30. I can. You cannot.
I just mean that it's very much, All-Star Weekend is not designed with me or you in mind, I don't think. And it feels like people on Twitter that like basketball sometimes maybe forget that, but that's all right.
Yeah.
All right. That will do it for today's show. Thank you for listening to the Just Basketball Show. Follow us wherever you are living on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of it. You can also hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching, including YouTube. And we will talk to you next time.